Throughout history, humanity has received numerous warnings about times of great transformation. History reveals clear patterns that repeat themselves, showing us what lies ahead. How are the words of ancient prophets connected to today's global conflicts, from tensions across multiple continents to struggles between world powers? What could lead to a third world war, and what might prevent it? Who is really pulling the strings behind world events? And how can we gain the power to influence and shape reality? Time and again, history has proven one core principle. No nation is ever conquered from the outside before it has already destroyed itself from within. The lecture, Prophets versus Empires, sheds new light on the words of ancient prophets who warned of these very times. They reveal a powerful secret. There is a single greatest power in existence to which every empire throughout history has been subject. These empires serve merely as instruments on the vast chessboard of the laws of creation. The more people come to understand how these universal laws operate, the greater our ability to bring about real change at this critical turning point in human history. Discover profound insights about the causes of current world events, from global conflicts and economic upheavals to pandemics and natural disasters. Learn how we can tip the scale from destruction and despair toward hope and renewal. This knowledge has never been more urgent or relevant to your life.
This podcast was originally recorded in Hebrew and features AI-generated English dubbing. The voices are not those of the original speaker.
Prophets versus Empires. Introduction. Wars, natural disasters, COVID, loss of trust in governments, economic and social crises, depression, anxiety, suicide. Why is all this happening now throughout the world with such intensity as never before seen? Where is God? Where is justice? Why doesn't the light overcome all this darkness? What can we do to change our reality? What can give us hope? I believe everyone in the world is asking these questions. In the series Prophets versus Empires, we'll seek answers by traveling back in time to witness history's hidden truths. Our journey has 7 interconnected chapters or episodes. Each chapter stands on its own and invites you to pause in order to truly absorb it. As these episodes unfold before you, they'll gradually form a complete picture of what's really happening in our world right now and what is required of each of us in this momentous time. I invite you to open yourselves to answers that the prophets received from above over thousands of years. These answers are nothing like the limited explanations we keep trying to come up with on our own, explanations which are constrained by our personal perspective. The prophet Amos said in chapter 3, verse 7, "Surely the Lord God does nothing unless he reveals his secret to his servants, the prophets." Throughout history, God has shown prophets what the future holds so that people might change their ways in time. This series will uncover these secrets which, though thousands of years old, speak directly to our life's challenges right now and provide the roadmap to humanity's urgent longed-for change. Chapter 1. The prophets speak to our spiritual consciousness and forms the spirit of man within him. Zechariah 12:1. To understand the prophetic message and use it, we must first understand that prophets directed their words to the human spirit, to our spiritual consciousness. Today, many people talk about consciousness manipulation, but they don't realize that humans actually have 3 types of consciousnesses: spiritual consciousness, intellectual consciousness, and emotional consciousness. Most people only focus on developing the last two. They're aware of their thoughts and emotions, but they ignore the spiritual consciousness. Yet, this is the only way we can see beyond the material world and become truly knowing beings. This means becoming fully human, with the power to change reality, or more precisely, to create and shape it. Most people also don't realize that if they only develop their intellectual and emotional consciousnesses, both of which are material forms of consciousness, because they're limited by time and space, they'll never truly free themselves from the matrix. This is because their spirit, their true self, is trapped in the matrix of their inner world. We can explain the difference between the outer or external matrix and the inner matrix using the story of the Exodus from Egypt. The prophet Moses freed the Israelites from the slavery of the outer matrix of Egypt, but freedom from the chains of the inner matrix, replacing the slave mindset of intellect and emotions with the consciousness of a free spirit, took 40 years in the desert. That's why it is said that it was easier to take the Israelites out of Egypt than to take Egypt out of the Israelites. In a sense, today, we're also in a transition from Egypt, the old world, to the promised land, the new world. So we too need to pass through the desert and free ourselves from the inner jailers that trap our spirit, our intellect and emotions. Even if we break free from the system, this doesn't guarantee our true freedom, which exists only in our inner world. According to the plan of creation, we were meant to have just one consciousness, the spiritual consciousness. The intellect and emotions were only ever supposed to be its servants, carrying out its will in the material world. But humanity developed in the wrong direction, and the servants became the masters. This tragic, distorted development can be described in one verse from Proverbs: a servant who becomes king, which refers to the intellect, and a maidservant who displaces her mistress, which refers to the emotions. This wrong development, where people no longer understand the language of the spirit, is exactly the immense challenge that all prophets faced. The prophets offered a solution that would have been very simple to understand and use if perceived by the spirit, but it seemed completely illogical when contemplated by the intellect and emotions. To show how hard it was for prophets to explain their solution to people who are spiritually blind and deaf, let me tell you about an experiment that took place. A person with perfect vision was given glasses with very strong prescription lenses. For several weeks, the person couldn't see anything through them. His vision was completely blurred, and he had terrible headaches. But as time passed, he started to get used to the glasses. His headaches stopped, and he began to see through them, though what he saw was distorted. However, when they finally removed his glasses, and he should have been able to see normally again, he couldn't see anything at all. How does this story relate to us? As humans, what makes us different from other creatures is our spirit, which is our true essence. We all have a natural ability to see with our spiritual eyes beyond time and space. The intuition, which is the voice of our spirit, is our sensing tool for this. Let's take a simple example: the intuition a woman has about a man she meets on a first date. This might be a feeling of connection, rejection, or simply no interest at all. Our intuition, which is quick and clear like lightning, gives us the most accurate information, but often we don't listen to it. Why? Because our intellect and emotions drown it out with their arguments. The intellect might say, he's a doctor, so he can't be a bad person. And the emotions might say, stop rejecting everyone or you'll never get married. The silencing of our spirit's voice by the dictatorship of the intellect and the emotions happened long ago. In the story of the Garden of Eden, which is actually a code and not a historical account, Adam and Eve fell for the serpent's temptation, who is, in fact, Lucifer, and ate from the fruit of the tree of knowledge. At that moment, humanity gave up its ability of spiritual sight and put on glasses that distort and limit the vision. These are the glasses of the material consciousness, the intellect and the emotions. Since then, we've become so used to looking at reality in a distorted way that we don't even notice it. We're even proud of being intellectual or emotional, and we reject anyone who tries to help us remove these distorting glasses and start seeing life through the natural vision of our spiritual eyes. So, while political and financial experts look at world events and try to analyze them through the material consciousness, the cold intellect and the heated emotions, the prophets brought a different logic, a different explanation. If our spirit had listened to them, all our problems, as individuals and as humanity, would have been solved. This is exactly what we lack and what we all need to learn in the new world. To have one consciousness, which is the spiritual consciousness, while our intellect and emotions go back to being what they were meant to be, servants of the Spirit and carriers of its will in the material world. Then we will no longer have conflicting voices inside us or hesitate to choose, because the Spirit always knows what's right for its development. However, since the prophet spoke to the logic of the Spirit, the answers in this series will only help those whose inner spirit spark hasn't been put out. The answers will help those willing to take off the distorting glasses. At first, they might not see anything or understand everything said here, but if they stick with their decision to become new human beings with spiritual consciousness, gradually they'll become people who can truly see, people who intuitively understand that if we follow the timeless advice given by the prophets, we'll experience a transformation in our personal lives and a revolution for our nation and all of humanity.